Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Boom Comic Source collaboration. Your DC Spotlight for the week of February 19th, 2025. Big week this week. I think 13 books. As per usual, I've been good. I've been keeping up on my notes. I've been keeping up on my ranks. I've been keeping up on my Comic Source Awards consideration. So I have all 13 books ranked. Don't forget, if you're listening to us audio only, we appreciate it. You can find the Comic Source podcast on all podcast platforms and apps. And if you subscribe, you can go back and listen to thousands of previous episodes, interviews, convention coverage, all that sort of stuff. But if you are listening to us audio only, don't forget to head over to Rocky's channel, where we do this every week on YouTube, where you can see the art, you can see our smiling faces. Comic Space Boom exclamation point. And once you're there, you guys are pros. You know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe. Ring that notification bell so you know when new content is coming out. And also, don't forget about our weekly Indie Spotlight, which happens over on the Comic Source YouTube channel. So all those things, like, comment, subscribe, just go and do a search for the Comic Source on YouTube. Tons of content over there as well. In fact, just Tuesday of this week, I put out an interview spotlighting New Gods 3 specifically, and really the whole New Gods series in general. Rom V unfortunately was not able to join us for the conversation, so it was just me and Evan Cagle, which is fine because Rom's been on several times before. Evan never had, so it was great. Evan was talking about how he almost didn't take on the series of New Gods, and that was super interesting. He also gave a little insight into what he loves about drawing the Niktari. That was fun as well. So I hope you all go and check out that conversation. Also, this week, we should be getting an interview with Jeff Lemire and Nick Robles about Absolute Flash, which I'm super excited for. Now, that one, I don't want to say what we talk about is vague, but we're a month away from the first issue coming out, and we didn't want to spoil anything. So we talk in general about the book, nothing spoilery at all. So I know there are some people that don't like spoilers at all. So don't worry, you can go listen to that interview about Absolute Flash, and nothing will be spoiled. And then also coming this week, an interview with Matthew Rosenberg about his upcoming book from Image, which I've had the opportunity to read the first issue. It's fantastic. It's called We're Taking Everyone Down With Us. It's awesome. It's kind of this retro James Bond era type story, but focusing on the villain rather than like James Bond, like this mad scientist and his daughter. It's awesome. The art's fantastic. So look for that coming this week as well. And then I'm going to be at Comics Pro. Well, I'm not going to actually be at Comics Pro. They really frown on press. I probably could have finagled my way, but I'm going to be in LA for some of the parties. So I might have some little snippets from there. We'll see. But anyway, getting back to DC, I thought it was a pretty strong week. There's some really great books. I actually had a hard time ranking my books. I mean, I knew what my 13th book was because there's one of these books that just hasn't really been working for me that way. But then when I went after that, it was kind of hard to rank the other 12. They were pretty close. So overall, I thought it was a pretty strong week. Not overwhelming with 13 books, but definitely a little bit more. I go back to the same old thing, and again, it's first world problems. I wish like we had like the same amount of books coming out every. I wish we had like 8 books every week, and that was it. Like, can you just limit to 8? But whatever. I know not all the books are intended for me or whatever, even though I read them all. But overall, yeah, I thought it was a pretty good week. What about you, Rocky? What'd you think of the week overall?
Overall, it was a mediocre week. I thought overall it wasn't bad. It was again. I'm still overall. I'm still very happy with DC, with the state of DC. I am. I'm just because you and I have been reviewing this. I don't know. This is, what is it, the third or fourth or fifth year? It feels we've been doing this a long time, and I just do feel even now like I feel a little bit overworked, professionally right now, and but yet. And a real test is that when I feel a little bit overworked, but I still want to read comics, because there was a period of time when I'd feel overworked and I didn't want to read the DC comics. But I do want to read DC because I do want to know what's happening in these comics, even on the comic books that I will be criticizing. I'm looking forward to reading them, and maybe it's just because I'm just happier in general in other aspects of my life. But yeah, I think this week was not bad.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. Sometimes I'm like, man, it's so much to read all these books, not just DC books, but independent books every weekend, and get ready to do this, and graphics and all that. like, man, there are times where I'm like, it's just it's so much. It's so much. I just want to take a break and not do anything. Just sit down and watch some baseball, or baseball season's coming up, spring training going on here in Phoenix, or watch some F1 racing, or play some video games, or do whatever, just veg out and not read comics. But man, I haven't felt like that in a while, which is a good thing, I guess. Because yeah, I mean, there's some really great books that are coming out right now. So all that being said, I guess we'll kick it off with the first book that we're going to talk about this week, the aforementioned New Gods. We're up to issue number 3, written by Rom V. We've got art by not only Evan Cagle, who handles the present day sequences, but Riccardo Federici, who handles the Chronicler sequence, as it's called. Francesco Segala on colors, Tom Napolitano on letters. I am just loving this book. Although let me get a little nitpick out of the way here, because I'm sure there's going to be some people that are like, I was told to pick up this New Gods book, and it was going to tell me how the Absolute Universe tied into the regular DC main universe, and it was like supposed to be like the book to read to kind of understand what's going on. And so far, all we've gotten is like some origins of the possible fourth world that we've never gotten before, with some ancient aliens that we've never seen before. And yeah, the Riccardo Federici art looks great, and the Evan Cagle art in the present day with the Nictari attacking Apocalypse, and soon to be heading off to New Genesis to attack there and possibly Earth. Like, yeah, cool story, bro, but I'm not getting what I was told I was going to get. I understand that. Like, I feel your pain. However, I am enjoying this for what it is, and I like the fact that the fourth world, Jack Kirby, sort of innovative at the time, not really as fleshed out as it could have been, which was a lot of Kirby's ideas. I think the guy had, and I'm not in any way criticizing Jack Kirby at all, but I think the guy had so many ideas, just trying to get them all out of his head, especially in the context of the time, and writing probably not being his strong suit, was probably a little bit more challenging. And books and storytelling, comic books and storytelling back then weren't as sophisticated as they are now. So I get all that. Just to say that things weren't as fleshed out as they could have been back then. Now, if we could have sat down with Jack, over a scotch or something, drinking some whiskey in front of the fire, and he, was like, okay, this is the story of the fourth world, and told us everything that he saw in his head, we would have been like, oh my God, this is like the greatest thing. I have no doubt of that. So I like what we're getting here, in that Rom is giving us some of this context that we've never seen before. It's kind of fleshing out. Now, are these Kirby's ideas? No, they're Rom's ideas, building on, the research he's done, and bringing his own ideas to the table and melding with what Kirby did. So I'm really enjoying this, because we're getting the second world, which leads into the third world, into the fourth world. And I have faith that eventually it's going to tie in, and it's going to do all those things that everybody has been saying it's going to do. Plus, we get a chance to see the Chronicler, who we haven't seen since Dark Knight's Death Metal, who, despite me not really being a fan of that series, was a really fascinating character, really interesting. Visually, he's awesome. The Riccardo Federici art here, along with the Evan Cagle art, is awesome. Him talking to Metron and giving us kind of the backstory of these different ancient aliens. Like, I just loved everything about this. But again, I understand if you're like, this is not what I thought it was going to be. I have every belief that we will get there. But yeah, I'm interested enough in Arbor Struta and Perusum and Nictar, who is, his return. He is the Nictari, which are these aliens that are those attackers that I mentioned before. So I have, again, faith that Rom V is going to bring it all together. He's building something epic in scope, and I really appreciate it. And we did get some present day sequences. We got to see Oberon. We got to see Barda. We got to see Scott Free. And again, I think it's all going to play out, and it's going to be worth the journey when we find out about this Kamal child, and what his powers are, and is Scott going to be able to save him from Orion, and all of that. Like, I'm in. Like, this is really intriguing for what it is. With the caveat, I get it if some people may be losing a little bit of patience. So this is in my top 3. I won't say exactly what number, but it's in my top 3. So what are your thoughts about it, Rocky?
I got to, yeah, I echo your sentiment. You're more diplomatic about it than I am, because this. I mean, for you and me both, you never mentioned Detective Comics, but this reminds me so much of significant aspects of Ram V's Detective Comics run, where we would get Federici's art and we'd get this rich exposition and storytelling, but ultimately it dragged on so long that it got frustrating and it just never nailed the landing, and we were just kind of glad to see it was finally over. Now, having said that, this here, it feels the same way. It felt very plodding at first. I had a very hard time reading this. I didn't particularly enjoy reading it, but I took the time. I took basically 4 pages of notes, and I had to reread that again, because and that's because I am told that we have to understand this to know what's going to happen in the DC universe, and it's so sad. I could summarize in a paragraph what Ram V. And I hate to say this, but I really think it sounds so pretentious. This is the Chronicler. The Chronicler is telling Metron the story of the origin of what the foundation is of what is actually going on. That the bad guys are the Nectari, the good guy is Parcerum. Parcerum was the ultimate god, the brother to Nictar, who killed their sister Arbor, who was the goddess of kindness. And Parcerum created a weapon before he died, and breathed life into it, and that was the child. And the child would come to life when the darkness was near, when the Nectari was near. That's all you need to say. But how Ram V says it here is going to alienate some readers and push them away. I already know that because there were people reading reviews. That was the negative reviews for the first 2 issues. They loved whenever Mr. Miracle shows up or Big Barda shows up. But the moment you get to the exposition, it's Ram V doing his Ram Ving again. He's becoming his own adjective, and that's not a good thing. Also, having read The Fourth World, Jack Kirby was a little wonky bit of a storyteller, quite frankly, but even he had more clarity than this. And I really fear that this is going to lose some readers. And because we did not need 2/3 of this comic to tell what is a very straightforward origin tale. And I also still don't know, I wasn't clear to me, it was the second world, and this Parzerum, is he part of the third world or the fourth world? I'm still not really clear there. I'm not even sure that's really important. I'm not sure what's with all these names, these long drawn out names, and some of them have more than one name, and then some planets have more than one name. Like, what's the point of being so it's pretentiousness. It's completely unnecessary to the narrative. Like, why have, like, it goes out of its way to sound like it's so important, and then all of a sudden it switches gears. Thankfully, whenever Big Barda shows up in Mr. Miracle, it's fantastic. It's a relief because we're finally out of this narrative, and it's so frustrating because it's good, and the Chronicler is such, he's like the Watcher, and the one thing the Watcher does for Marvel is that he dumbs down the narrative. You know, one reviewer said, and I agree to, I felt sorry for the reviewer, but I'm sympathetic. He goes, I don't like reading Ram V because he makes me feel stupid. and there's a part of me, I will admit, I feel stupid. Like, Ram V, you got an English lit degree or something. You're better at the English language. You're probably multilingual. You speak multiple languages, I'm sure. But, you know, sometimes I read this and it's like, yeah, I didn't quite get that. I got to slow down, and anyways, I really wish this would benefit from more of just maybe like just really dumbing it down. And is it really necessary? And I think maybe Ram V prepared too much for this, for what is ultimately a straightforward mythology story. A little bit of background. This feels this feels more. Dare I say? I think. How many people are going to have the patience to stick with this? Because people are showing up for Mr. Miracle and Orion and Big Barda. They're not showing up for these origin story, this origin portion of it. And I hope people have the patience, because I do. I'm getting every issue because I'm a DC guy. I need to know this stuff. I want to know this stuff. But I got to admit, I'm like you. I can completely see people saying, "Look, I don't know if I'm into this," but. You know, now it's still in my top 5 because I like the story. But like you, and I know it sounds crazy, I spend most of it kind of criticizing it, but I did enjoy it. I like the origin. I just really think I spent I got 4 pages of notes, and I could summarize it in a paragraph that Ramvi insists on spending 2/3 of a comic explaining with multiple exposition, covering up gorgeous Federici art. It's frustrating. Anyways, rant over.
Nah, you could sum up the origin of Spider-Man in one sentence, but it's about the journey. It's about the journey, you know. The kid was irresponsible and indirectly got his uncle killed. With
Well,
great power comes great responsibility. Okay, done. I don't ever need to watch a Spider-Man movie or read a Spider-Man comic. I got the story. The point is the journey. The point is the journey. And I get it. Like, you're right. We were 100% frustrated with this Detective Comics run, but it took a little while for that frustration to set in. We're only 3 issues in here. You
yeah.
know, maybe it's that Ramvi has used up his patience with that long Detective Comics run, but there's a huge difference, right? Like, the mythos of Batman has been explored, you know, countless ways from every different direction over and over and over decades and decades and decades. So, you know, I have less patience for something that's like super pretentious and basically goes back and inserts history that we've never heard before into the Batman, you know, origin and mythos. Like, I have a harder time with that because it's retroactive continuity. But this, what he's adding here to the New Gods and to the Fourth World, it's new. He's not contradicting anything. It fits. There's nothing that he's doing here that you go, oh well, you know, that doesn't make sense because Jack Kirby said this. It's not that. It's fleshing it out. And like, I get it. I hear what you're saying. And some people might feel dumb. I'm like, I'm sorry. That's on you. uh,
Yes,
but
it
but
is.
but the other part of this is like, at some point, this is going to be, you know, and again, it matters how much it's accepted by other creators and the fans to some extent as well, right? But at some point, things were introduced and they were new, and it might have been convoluted and it might have taken a while, whatever. At one point, there was no concept of the Speed Force, right? In Flash, and then it got introduced, and it happened over a number of years, and now, you know, we accept the Speed Force and the idea of it, and it can be convoluted, and it's different things to different creators, and you know, something wrong with the Speed Force. We know that story's been told, you know, any number of times now. But my point is, it takes time. You got to be, you know, you got to have a little patience when these ideas are first introduced. Maybe they don't click right away, but you know, give it time, and if they're good ideas, they'll be embraced by other creators, and then, you know, over time, it does become, you know, part of the DC canon, and you know, people understand it and what have you. So I would just say to everybody, if you're frustrated with this, maybe wait for the trade so you can read it all in one sitting. You know, maybe that's easier for you, or maybe, you know, wait until you hear that it's more focused on what's going on in the present. I completely trust that what Romvi is doing here, all these flashbacks and origins of the second world and these ancient gods, it's going to matter. Like, we're going to need that context going forward. If he just had, okay, the Niktari are attacking Apocalypse and they're attacking New Genesis and they're on their way to attack Earth and they're going after this kid, Kamal, then people would be bitching. Well, who are the Niktari? Where did they come from? Why are you just throwing them in there? You're not telling us who they are or whatever. Like, so, you know, you can't have it both ways. He's explaining where they're coming from and what their motivations are. And I'm sure it'll tie into Darkseid and, you know, all that stuff we talked about. And we went page by page for the DC All In special, talking about Darkseid and, you know, fascinating ideas that Scott Snyder and Joshua Williamson came up with, that Darkseid was this necessary force in the universe. Now he's removed himself. That's all going to tie in. So they're big ideas, and I get it, and it can be complicated, but I think if you invest the time, you get a richer story. That's just my opinion. But
Yeah.
anyway, why am I'm on the wrong part here? Anyway, let's move on. Up next, we have Batman and Robin. No,
Creature Commandos.
Creature Commandos. Why? Yeah, Creature Commandos. Sorry. Creature Commandos, number 5. David Dastmalchian is the writer. Jesus Horvath on art. Alex Gormas on colors. All I'm going to say is something's got to be ranked last. This was ranked last for me. I'll turn it over to you, Rocky. I know it was in your top 5.
Yeah. I've been enjoying this. This has been a guilty pleasure for me from the beginning. I've been enjoying what David Dastmalchian's been doing, and the art by Jesus Harvez, pardon me, Jose, what, Harvez?
Jesus.
Jesus Harvez. Thank you.
Yeah.
And in any event, thing's funny in this chapter. in issue 5, the penultimate issue. I'm assuming this is only 6 issues long, but maybe it's longer. But in any event, the Creature Commandos are finally invading. Along with Shreve, they're led by this human commander named Shreve, who basically hates them. He considers them monster fodder. They're attacking Brainiac's base, and ultimately they're at first they're completely decimated, and they have a fail-safe device, an explosive device that they're going to explode. General Eiling wants to explode the device, but then there's the lead doctor, Doctor. Her name's Barbara. She wants to. She basically gets them to hold off. We got Moon and Vincent and Velcro, the vampire creature. They're starting to get along. The team finally starts to gel along with Frankenstein and Medusa, and they start to gel and they start to defeat Brainiac's troops, despite the fact that Brainiac's troops are all robotic. And so a lot of the monsters' powers, they're really more powerful when they fight human opponents, but when they fight robots, it's a little bit more difficult for Medusa's powers, which induces horror in people. They don't work on robots, just like vampires. You can't really suck blood from a robot. And a werewolf, obviously, robots have super strength. So having a robotic army is probably the ideal thing that Brainiac has set up to deal with the monsters. And how it's ultimately resolved is Brainiac manages to shut off the berserker mode, because it's almost like a video game. They got the General Eiling's got him set up that these monsters could go into berserker mode as a failsafe as well, but that's shut down by Brainiac. That's ultimately turned on again by the end of the issue. They go ape nuts, defeat Brainiac. Brainiac basically escapes, but then the military men under General Eiling, Captain Shreve is ordered to basically incapacitate all of the Creature Commandos, and ultimately that he fails to do so. And now the Creature Commandos, because they were nothing but military fodder to be, expendable, now they're enemies of the U.S. government, because they, in order to save themselves, took out and killed the army men that were their allies. And that's really how it ends. It's action packed, and it's a lot of fun. It's just a lot of fun. It's a lot of bang for your buck. It's easy to read. And having read it after I read him in order, so after reading New Gods like 3 times, it was a welcome. Maybe it was such a welcome relief after reading New Gods. I could understand it, but I just had a lot of fun with this, and this is not like the cartoon. People who are watching the cartoon and pick up this Creature Commandos, this is definitely David Dastmalchian's take on it. It's not really in any way, shape, or form much like it's not like the cartoon or the animation, which is surprising. You think it was a curious choice by DC, but I still have a lot of fun with this. And for those that are into maybe 70s Marvel monsters, or this might be something you might enjoy and pick up as well.
Yeah, I don't really. I mean, the characterization is kind of wonky. I'm not saying it's bad, but really for me, it's the art. I just don't care for the art style, and it pulls me out of the story constantly, and I can't enjoy it. It's unfortunate. So, yeah. Anyway, up next, this is in my top 5, rank number 4. Actually, it's the question all along the Watchtower, issue number 4 from Alex Segura. Cian Tormey and Raul Fernandez are the artists. Romulo Fajardo Jr. on colors, Willie Schubert on letters. We found out at the end of last issue a little bit of a cliffhanger ending, that the person that was behind everything that's been going on at the Watchtower is a cyborg Superman. And what I really enjoy here, so it's what I was talking about earlier, and I've talked about throughout the series. It's the question, the Renee Montoya question is such a street level character, such a grounded character. And that being said, it's still a great role for her to have as like security chief of the Watchtower, with her investigative skills and what have you. But at the same time, like, how, if she's expected to keep the peace, how do you do that with people that are vastly more powerful than she is? And now we're extrapolating that to the nth degree, right? When we talk about this sort of world-ending threat that is cyborg Superman, he is of a power level almost equal to Superman. And so how is Renee Montoya, who, may have some elevated strength and reflexes and what have you, but she's certainly not in that power level. So that's the challenge. That's what's great. And it's not like Alex Segura is turning Renee Montoya into a Mary Sue here. He's done a great job of showing the level of danger, and still keeping it very grounded. I mean, Renee Montoya Question is a very emotional character. Her story should be emotional. They should come with a little trauma and baggage because that's just who she is as a character. And we have that here, right? With Cyborg Superman having escaped the Phantom Zone, partly due to the fact that Renee Montoya was given a Phantom Zone rifle, a Phantom Zone gun that she was carrying around. And that's how Cyborg Superman was able to escape the Phantom Zone by tapping into that connection. But he knows that the more time he spends in our world, as opposed to the Phantom Zone, his clock is ticking. He's going to like explode because of the feedback of the Phantom Zone energy or what have you. And so it's interesting. He's not looking to win the day here. This is a much more nihilistic goal. He's just like, if I'm going to go out, I'm taking the Justice League with me, which is a very Cyborg Superman thing to do when you think about, who the character is. Hank Henshaw, he's living on borrowed time from the very beginning with the accident in the space shuttle. He should have died way back when. So it's a great take on Cyborg Superman. I love that the Eradicator is there, and Conduit as well. Sort of these classic Superman villains. And obviously Cyborg Superman has been able to sort of mind control some others, Animal Man and Nightshade and what have you. So literally with his mastery over technology, having this Justice League Watchtower satellite attack Renee Montoya and Batwoman as they're trying to reach safety and get to the reinforcements, get to the Blue Beetles that they hope can help them prevent the destruction of the Watchtower satellite. It ramps up the action, it ramps up the sense of danger, and it's just really, really well done. The Ralph Fernandez art and Cian Tormey, they do a fantastic job on the art. This is a very fast-paced issue. The series hasn't been necessarily what I thought it would be. I thought it would be a little slower paced and more of kind of a mystery story, a detective story. This has been an action story almost from the beginning, and I'm okay with that because it's been so good. So I don't know. Did you say this was in your top? No, it wasn't your top 10, Rocky. But I don't know if you have
Well,
anything to add.
Well, it was probably tied for fifth, frankly, but it was probably I put it at number six. I really enjoyed this. And just to build on some of the things you're saying about it, I like the fact that it's called The Question all along the Watchtower. I say that because there's a reason why it's not called the Justice League. Watchtower, the Justice League Watchtower is in the title, but it focuses on the question and it's character building for Renee Montoya. She expresses a great deal of insecurity about herself in this issue. She feels she failed. Her actions in using the Phantom Zone rifle against Conduit in issue 1 or 2, or I think it was, resulted in the Cyborg Superman gaining the foothold on the Justice League and control of the Justice League Watchtower. It is compromised. She was hired by the Justice League to find out, who's infiltrating the tower. She's managed to do that, but in any event, you and I are probably some of the, and probably I wish more people had read some of the past issues of Renee Montoya. She's had a lot of, particularly with her John Ridley stories. I mean, she's been a very, very grounded character, and to go from a character where was a detective and then the commissioner of Gotham to go to suddenly being in the Watchtower, that's a hell of a character journey. And I'm pleased to see that Segura has incorporated a lot of the humanity of Renee Montoya and her insecurities, and even the nice little hints of a romance with Batwoman. I'd like to see that as well, and it's done really well. It's done in a very, it's done in a way where we're getting to know the characters and we're getting to learn something about the Watchtower. And it's really nice to see the B-list characters, dare I call them that, Animal Man and Nightshade get some love, along with the Blue Beetle and again, Batwoman. And it's nice to see more aspects of the Justice League Watchtower because we're getting more of it in here than arguably we are in the Challenges of the Unknown, although we're seeing more of the Justice League Watchtower in that as well. So yeah, it's pretty good.
All right, up next in both of our top 5, we have Zatanna number 1. This is written, and art is done by Jamal Campbell. Letters by Ariana Mayer. Does it have? Yeah, I guess. Yeah, Jamal's doing the color work as well. So this was so much fun. But I'm gonna let you go first. What did you think of it?
Uh, one thing about Jamal Campbell, I don't know if I got this, but I'm showing a picture now for those just listening to the podcast who aren't seeing this. I'm showing a picture of Jamal Campbell's rendition of Zatanna. I got some very strong. Zatanna looks like a hot-looking African American, but with white skin. She looks like she's got that. She looks like she's got that black woman booty going on. And there's one thing what I love about it, Jamal Campbell's rendition, is that she looks sexy as hell, but it looks like a Jamal Campbell drawn. Just like he's got such a unique way to drawing attractive women, and it reminds me a lot of his how he draws Sojourner. You know, he's good at drawing the booty. You know, and I really there's a sexiness to Zatanna, and I love the visuals. The visuals here are so fantastic, and the visuals, and because Jamal Campbell is both the writer and the artist, and it's great to see him try his hand at writing. And I'm pleased to say that, you know, even though it's not the most sophisticated opening issue in terms of plot, it doesn't need to be. This is a key first appearance of a new character villain called Lady White. Lady White. It basically the story is essentially Zatanna and her crew are setting up a new magic show in a Hollywood theater, and this theater is over 150 years old. And legend has it that a Lady White, who was during the classic golden ages. During the golden era of Hollywood, this Lady White was a famous entertainer who just disappeared, and she ends up appearing at the end of this issue, or in the middle of the issue, she ends up appearing and as a ghost, or I don't know if she was trapped in the theater, or we don't know much about her, but she seems to have control or has been manipulating one of the crew members, this Adam character, who Zatanna befriends and who helps with sort of the acrobatic areas of the entertainment show that Zatanna's putting together, and ultimately. Zatanna, there's great sequences as Zatanna gets to know the crew. We get to know her crew members as well, and there's double page spreads that are just absolutely gorgeous. There's one in particular I really like where Zatanna is flipping the cards and explaining to Adam, who's a little bit insecure about maybe screwing up on the job, how, you know, you gotta be careful how she's in the magic business, where in illusion you gotta sell the lie to people, so that you can only do it if reality is working. And you know, she's really good at the analogies and the hand motion. You get a feel that this is a comic book about a magician, and it just works so well. And I love the fact that at one point she's going through various old time movie posters, and Jamal Campbell does a fantastic job rendering these, how Zatanna's going through different portals through the astral plane as she's trying to rescue all her crew members who are being, ultimately it's discovered, manipulated by the Lady White. And just absolutely gorgeous visuals. Very well done. And I believe Jamal Campbell also does all the color work as well. I couldn't see the name of a colorist anywhere, so I'm assuming he does that as well. Just very well done. And then culminating in a hell of a cliffhanger with a golden sword being plummeted through Zatanna by Adam, who is perhaps a reluctant betrayer of her confidence and friendship. And I don't know, I thought just really great. He's got a firm understanding of Zatanna's magic, the talking backwards, et cetera, et cetera. I love the lettering. Shout out to Ariana Mayer. She does a really good job with the lettering. And when you do a Zatanna comic with the you know, making her speaking backwards, I like looking at the lettering to know when Zatanna is talking magic, not just because of the words being spelled backwards, but because of the appearance of the letters as well. That works as well. So I thought it was very well done. What about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I loved everything about it. Jamal Campbell's art, it's obviously recognizable as his art. Typically, he does his own color work, you know, like I think the last series we saw him on as kind of a regular artist was he did the Superman comic with Joshua Williamson when that launched, and then before that he did, you know, several volumes of Naomi with with Brian Michael Bendis, who, speaking of which, she completely disappeared with Bendis, right? When Bendis left, she's completely disappeared from DC. Not a
Yeah.
member of the Justice League. It's like she was a member of the Justice League, then she just disappeared, and they died, and she didn't die, and whatever. She's back at home living her life, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, this Zatanna book is fantastic. I echo your sentiments about her traveling through different parts of the astral plane. Um, it makes sense if this Lady White is the one that's manipulating and capturing her crew as Zatanna travels through different parts, and it's different parts of the astral plane are different sort of old time movies as depicted by the movie posters that you mentioned. I mean, that makes sense if this villain is an old school Hollywood actress. So it's just fantastic, and it's not just that we get these different sort of classic posters, whether one be like a classic romance a la Casablanca, another one being like an alien invasion film, and another one being like an old, pulp detection film, another one being like a road trip film. It's not just that he captures the kind of the spirit of those types of films in these little snippets of movie posters, but it's the color work as well, right? Like the alien one is almost looks like it has a green filter, and the romance one has an orange filter, and the pulp one has a red filter. Like the artwork is just amazing, amazing, and I think you need that when it's a Zatanna book. Now, completely different style of art than we had in the last Zatanna Black Label book that Mariko Tamaki did, and I think it was Javier Rodriguez who did the art on that. And that art worked really, really well, but it was a younger Zatanna, and it didn't lean into the sexiness so much. It leaned more into the inexperience and the youth. Um, and credit where credit's due, DC did a good job of putting the right artist on the right story. Now, granted, Jamal's writing this also, so of course he's going to be the one to draw it. So, I mean, this is just fantastic. I loved everything about it. Obviously, it's a Zatanna, and traditionally she's very sexy, as you mentioned, with the fishnets and showing a lot of leg and what have you, and been drawn by people like Adam Hughes and what have you. So there's a lot of variant covers. Specifically, there's one. It's a Midtown exclusive, unfortunately, but it's by Dan Panosian. Hoping I can get my hands on one of those at some point because it's fantastic. But anyway, I really love this. Definitely in my top five. All right. Up next, we have a book that's in neither of our top five. It's Batman and Robin Year One, issue number 5 from writer, credited as storyteller or co-plot, Mark Waid and Chris Samnee. Writer Mark Waid, artist Chris Samnee. Colors by Mateus Lopez. Letters by Clayton Cowles. And it's not that this is bad. It definitely is something new and refreshing in terms of early take on Bruce and Dick's relationship. So I think there's value there, but not everything can be in the top 5. So this is just okay. I think it's a book that's going to read much better in trade. It's a story that I think you'll benefit from reading it all in one sitting. So I'm going to leave it at that. All right. Up next, another book that's not in our top 5. And this one, for me, I should say Batman and Robin Year One was ranked 10th for me. And then up next, we have Jenny Sparks number 7. And for some reason, I don't know how I missed ranking this one. But this finished just outside my top 5, I believe.
Yeah, I put this dead last.
Really?
Yeah, dead last. I thought this was just very extremely disappointing.
Okay, that's fair. I'm trying to see where I missed a ranking. 4, 5, 6. I'll figure it out in a second. But written by Tom King, Jeff Spokes on art, Clayton Cowles on letters. I know it's not in your top 5, Rocky, but just give us your quick thoughts on it real fast while I figure it
out. In fairness, the 2 comics that Tom King wrote this week, I'm not a huge fan of, but I love so much of what Tom King writes, and so this is just not my cup of tea. I thought I understood. Maybe I was hoping he'd have more to say about the spirit of the 20th century, about the 21st century, and about Captain Atom, and about something about humanity and divinity and godhood and what Captain Atom was going through, and what was the real purpose of bringing back Jenny Sparks, and they're just it just felt really empty to me. I never really, the fundamental question that every writer asks when you start a series is, what was the point of writing this? And I get to the end of this, and I don't know what the point of he had in writing this. He didn't say anything. I never got anything out of this in terms of what was he saying about Captain Atom, other than just making him go insane. And then at the end, Captain Atom, he's suddenly not insane anymore, and they're just going to let him live a normal life. They're just going to let him. He's a danger, clearly a danger. He was insane. Now he's just not insane, and that's just all wrapped up. And then we're not supposed to worry about it because Jenny Sparks sends him a note while he's at the saying, don't do that again. Don't do that again, or I'll come and kick your ass. She leaves him a note at the end, and it's like, don't do what again? You mean almost wipe out humanity? And like this is, I thought this was really. Well, I got some adjectives. I won't say them, but I just thought this was just not a very satisfying ending to me. It's in my view, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts, because this is a prime opportunity you have. You can tell me what I missed. You really can. Tell me what I missed. What was he trying to say with this issue and this story? Because I was really hoping that he would have something more to say than what I found, but maybe you can enlighten me. So.
Yeah, sorry I messed up. So just a correction. Batman and Robin Year One would be number 11 for me, actually.
Okay.
And which puts this at number 7. So yeah, I mean, it didn't make my top 5, but it was definitely worth reading. I definitely enjoyed it. And I mean, I understand what you're saying, that it seemed to wrap up, I don't want to say conveniently, but it wrapped up in such a way that where I could see what you're saying. Like, okay, can we really trust Captain Atom based on, what was done? And I get it. It doesn't wrap up in such a way where like there's this big momentous fight or something happens to where you're like, okay, I understand now and the problem is solved. And that's kind of what I appreciated about it. And it's not surprising that Tom King wrote this, right? Because I've had this conversation with him so many times. He always likes to try to find a new way to tell a story. And what I loved about the ending of this is what we discover is at the end of the day, everything that happened, all the different machinations, Captain Atom killing the heroes and then killing the hostages and then wiping out all of reality, and Jenny Sparks being there and as he goes through these motions and seemingly being helpless to stop him from doing it. It turns out that the whole entire time, the heroes that sent Jenny in there, as well as Captain Atom himself, they were all playing checkers, man. They were all playing checkers. And Jenny Sparks was fucking playing chess the whole time. So to me, for somebody who, hasn't had a lot of experience reading about Jenny Sparks and what have you, like this just elevated her so much in my mind. To see that she was like 2 steps ahead of everybody else the whole time was great. It was awesome. And she explains it at the end, when reality's been restored and whatever. And Batman and Superman are kind of there like, wait, what just happened? And, she's kind of explaining it to him. She's like, look, he thought he was a god, as boring as that is, as cliched as that is. You can't really argue against it because he has the powers of a god. I mean, again, we're talking about a character at DC that they bought from Charlton, who, when Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons created, Watchmen, the character of Dr. Manhattan is based on the original Charlton character of Captain Atom. And a lot of people don't realize that. And they sell Captain Atom short on his power level, his abilities, whereas everybody just accepts Dr. Manhattan as almost omnipotent and he can do anything he wants, which I just find fascinating. Captain Atom really has that same power level that Dr. Manhattan does. So yes, for him to consider himself a god, like we get it, right? Power level wise, you might be up there, but it's the inherent flaws of his character and what have you. And we can get into that. That's a conversation for another day. But the fact that, she was able to say, look, as cliched as it is, this guy thinking he's a god, the only way that I could beat him, quote unquote, was for him to learn his limitations, for him to learn what it means to really be a god. And it's not just destroy, 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 live in your pain. That's his pain and his suffering, and the fact that he's lost his wife and child, and he's out of time and whatever. That, it's a big thing, especially in the beginning of the story. And then it circles back around to that in this particular issue. But again, she's playing chess. She has set up events because she knows what his reactions and his behavior is going to be, so that he's going to learn that what it means to really be a god, that he's got to create. Yes, you can destroy reality, you can kill all these people over and over and over, but at the end of the day, if you're a god, you need to create, and you kind of give status quo or whatever. And it's not the same thing, and it's way more complicated and way more sophisticated. And the artwork is absolutely fantastic. I love the Jeff Spokes art, but I'm going to explain it. I'm going to give you an analogy, Rocky, and everybody out there listening, that maybe will kind of help click into place for some people. And it's a classic 80s movie with Matthew Broderick, War Games, right? I'm sure you've seen it, Rocky. And it's, you got the Whopper computer, and it's going to, launch nuclear warheads or whatever. And, it's simulation, and it doesn't know the difference between real life and simulation or whatever. And how do they teach it at the end of the day that, nuclear war is not a good thing? They make it play tic-tac-toe against itself over and over and over and over. It's at the speed of light, whatever. It plays all these games and realizes there's no way to win tic-tac-toe. There's no way to win a nuclear war. That's kind of what Jenny Sparks has done here to Captain Atom. She's allowed him to make all the mistakes and destroy reality, and basically bang his head against this brick wall. Worship me, I'm a god, I'm a god, I'm a god. And allowed him to do all these horrible things, kill the hostages, kill the heroes or whatever, because she knows at the end of the day, he's an intelligent being, and he's going to learn you can't win if you play tic-tac-toe even against yourself. There's no winning that game. And that's sort of the story that's being told here. So I can't wait till the next time I see Tom. I'm going to be like, so Jenny Sparks, War Games, huh? just see what he says. But anyway, I enjoyed it. I know it's not for everybody. And it might be the fact that I didn't have a lot of context or history with Jenny that allowed me to enjoy this so much. But yeah, I thought it was pretty good. So I didn't necessarily mean to talk about it that long, but I don't know, Rocky, you kind of were hoping I'd bring it home for you.
My commentary would be, was a really bad way to end it, though, only because, particularly artistically, it should have been told from the purview of Captain Atom. It would have been nice to have actually seen Captain Atom experience that and go through that journey, as opposed to Jenny just telling us that's what
maybe the book's called Jenny. And the book's called Jenny Sparks.
The thing is, though, I mean, just I'm sorry, but that's just such a ridiculous way to end it. Jenny Sparks. That's like letting Thanos win. Don't undo what Thanos did, because Thanos, being a god, will eventually figure out that he's wrong, and he's going to undo everything. No, the guy's a god. Let him destroy everything. He'll eventually figure out. He'll be bored, and he'll recreate us again. What a dumb thing way to end this. Like,
I completely disagree. And also, if you read the original Infinity War, that's kind of what they did. Because there was no. What do you do when you can't win? What do you do when the person that you're fighting against literally has the powers of a god and can shape reality? You have to find a way. And this was the only way. I totally bought in. I totally bought into that.
Anything. What was the point of Jenny? He would have figured it out anyway. She didn't manipulate anybody. She didn't do anything. Captain Atom would have done it anyway. He would have destroyed anything anyway.
She was in there. She was in there pushing. She was in there antagonizing him, pushing his buttons. Go back and read it. The stuff that she would say to him that would set him off. Even in this last issue, the things she was saying to set him off. Yeah, she was there manipulating.
She just sped it up. She sped up the inevitable. Like it just. I don't know.
Maybe not. Maybe not. Let's just say it wasn't for you.
It wasn't for me.
You're somebody that believes you can win at tic-tac-toe. That's fine. You can outsmart the machine. But anyway, let's move on. Talked way too long about a book that I mean, I get it. Like, it wasn't in my top 5. It wasn't the best ending, but I did enjoy it. So anyway, up next, a book that is actually just missed. It's number 6 for me, number 3 for you. It's Challengers of the Unknown, issue number 3. This is from writer Christopher Cantwell. I don't know why I don't have the credits in front of me. But Christopher Cantwell, we have art by Sean Isaacs and Amin K. Nahalapan, colors by Romulo Fajardo Jr., letters by Hassan Atzman Elhau. I did very much enjoy the kind of the text piece on the title page from Mr. Terrific. And all I'm going to say about this, because it's in your top five, so I'm going to let you talk about it. All I'm going to say is I really don't care for the way Mr. Terrific treats the challenges of the unknown. Yeah. I really don't. I think he's doing them dirty. And we do have an upcoming Mr. Terrific series coming later this year. And unfortunately, I don't have really high hopes for it based on his characterization recently. But anyway, give us your thoughts on this.
Well, I do actually have, ironically enough, I do have some criticism of this. I'm really glad at the beginning of this comic we have some exposition explaining it again, explaining what has happened in the first two issues, because it kind of does need to be explained again because I'd forgotten so much, and there's a lot of information jam-packed in here. This series does a masterful job. Christopher Cantwell's done a pretty good job here of making me not a big Mr. Terrific fan, and like you said, it's hard for me to have any sympathies for the Justice League. What they're doing here is, on the one hand, they're using the challengers of the unknown because they know that the challengers of the unknown they fear that the challengers themselves have Omega energy within them and that they're manifesting some energy, and they're not telling them this. They're not telling the challengers of the unknown this. So they're incarcerating them while at the same time using them. I mean, literally what's happened in the first issue, they used one challenger, didn't go right. They incarcerated that one. Then issue 2, couple more challengers were put on a mission, were arguably successful, but not quite successful, but had incarcerated them. What happens in this issue? Wally, another challenger, they put him on a mission. He ends up finding out through this being called the Optimum that he's destined to unite and figure out how to unite the life and the anti-life equation. And in doing so, he discovers that he wants to find out more information about the Atom Project, because the Atom Project might help him understand what his future role is in uniting the life and the anti-life equation, but they don't want to tell him that. So, I mean, talk about keeping your heroes in the dark, and Mr. Terrific, he gets so frustrated. He says he's so frustrated when he doesn't know anything. Well, he doesn't know anything, and he's hiring people who know a bunch of stuff. He wants their knowledge, but he won't share. And he wonders why they get pissed off, and then to top it off, he incarcerates them. I mean, the guy does not know how to win friends and influence people by any stretch, but it's not just Mr. Terrific. The entire Justice League is complicit as well. But you can maybe understand because they're so deathly afraid of the Omega energy, but it just seems like everyone's on tiptoes here. You're pissing off the very people that are filled with Omega energy. So if by chance they happen to be bad, I don't know if there's not much you can do about it. And I don't think that little storage, that little prison you got him in on, that just JLA Watchtower, is going to prevent them from getting out if they were in danger, which they don't appear to be so far. On the other aspects of the issue I like, we got to see Anthro and Embra. I haven't seen Anthro. Oh my God, I haven't seen Anthro. I think I have an old Anthro comic book somewhere, but Anthro, what's his Anthro? He's a Cro-Magnon man. Anyways, he's got a higher IQ than, much to the chagrin of the Atom. He's got a higher IQ than anybody, and in any event, it was really nice to see them. So not just the challengers, but we get other DC characters and the other obscure DC characters that are coming into the woodwork here. It's really nice to see that. We're also seeing that in the Question All Along the Watchtower with other sort of B-list characters. I really like that. But anyways, the mystery builds. This Walter character, we got every member of the Challengers of the Unknown has some connection to some Omega energy that has been somewhere in the universe, and it's the plot thickens. We still don't know what's going on. We still don't know what this all means, but it is interesting. And I will say that I want to give Christopher Cantwell some credit, because the fact that I don't like that I'm frustrated with Mr. Terrific, I don't think that's a bad thing. to me, it's sort of like getting pissed off at Darth Vader for, killing somebody with a lightsaber. That's who Darth Vader is. Mr. Terrific, when you're super smart and you're fearful and you're filled with anxiety and you're dealing with life and death and the multiverse at stake, I can understand Mr. Terrific being extra, maybe being a little bit of an a-hole, and that's what he is here. So as frustrated as I am, don't take that as necessarily criticism of how it's written, because I think it's making me care in the fact that I'm getting pissed off at one of the characters, but I mean that in a good sense because I'm invested in the story. And so I enjoy it, and I'm really curious to see where it's headed. And it looks like there's some dysfunction forming in the Challengers of the Unknown unit itself, because they're getting more and more members of the Challengers of the Unknown are getting pissed off at their treatment. So overall, I thought this was really good. And this, along with Question All Along the Watchtower, is one of those DC series that, along with New Gods, is definitely one that I'm glad I'm reading, because it feels like something different is happening in the DC universe and it's building to something. So
yeah, it's so interesting too, because we come off of them defeating Amanda Waller in at the end of Absolute Power and kind of coming together, kind of that feel good moment at the beginning of the All In special. Hey, we're all in this together. We're all members of the Justice League. We're all rowing in the same direction. And then Darkseid shows up, all hell breaks loose, and now they don't even trust each other, to the extent that Mr. Terrific, I mean, I agree with you that the whole Justice League is complicit, but at the same time, they put so much trust and belief in Mr. Terrific, and he's not telling Batman and Superman that he's screwing over the Challengers of the Unknown. By no means is he doing that. So yeah, I agree with you. It's uncomfortable to read at times what Mr. Terrific is doing, but that's just good character work from Christopher Cantwell. So, yeah, like I said, really enjoying what's going on here. All right, up next, definitely in my top 5. Definitely not. Actually, hold on. Okay, in my top 5, I was going to say, not in Rocky's top 5. I didn't think it was, and then for a second I thought I was wrong about that. But anyway, it's Wonder Woman number 18. This just makes my top 5. Written by Tom King, Daniel Sampere on art, Tomeo Mori on colors, Clayton Cowell on letters. Even though it's not in your top 5, I know you got some stuff to say about it, and I'll let you go first. Not that I'm going to correct you after, but I'll just give my thoughts. I'll give my thoughts after.
I know. Well, it's funny. One of the people in the comments on the videos here a couple of weeks ago said that they like the way that they like a rapport, especially when I praise a comic and then you correct me by telling me how wrong I am, or you give the counterpoint. They like that. They like the back and forth that way. So I have a feeling that's what it's going to be like here. But to be honest with you, I just I think you know what I'm going to say. I just the art here is fantastic. This issue is just Wonder Woman. Literally, the entire issue is just her walking to the White House. It starts off with her eating an apple under the Washington Monument. And we're narrated again by the villain from the beginning. This is the 18th straight issue of that, there was 2 issues where Wonder Woman went shopping for Batman, because that was so important to know, and one other one I forget. And this is just Wonder Woman walking into the White House, over the White House lawn, and we're told that the actual adventures that the Amazons were rescued by Batman and Flash. Of course, that's off panel. Tom King got that wrong, of course. It wasn't Batman and Flash that rescued the Amazons. It was actually Birds of Prey, but he doesn't talk to Kelly Thompson. But all the things that are happening that I actually would want to see aren't happening. And the Wonder Girls here are babysitting, and that was important to see. All the things here that's supposed to be so visually, there's some real cool moments with Wonder Woman walking up to the White House. The Sovereign's already been discovered. I mean, we needed to have a monkey. Bibbo solved the case because Wonder Woman couldn't do it. So Bibbo, the super smart chimp, he figured that out, Columbo style. And so the Sovereign's already been discovered. So how is the Sovereign in the White House still controlling the president with Grail? I thought he was outed by Jimmy Olsen in the Daily Planet, but I guess this is just the real world being reflected in the comic books. It doesn't matter how corrupt the president is if it's controlled by sovereign power, right? I mean, he's still in the White House. So I don't know. this is so boring. And she's just walking into the White House. She's walking, and then Grail, instead of having a confrontation with Grail, Cheetah hops in and distracts Grail and that's how it ends. And then Wonder Woman just walks into the White House, and like, are we really supposed to look forward to? I can't imagine the next issue is going to be interesting at all. It's going to be one glorified conversation between Wonder Woman and an old man who looks like Mr. Magoo. Where's the excitement in this? I don't see it. And even her confronting Sarge Steele, like, we've seen this before. More yappity yap yap yap. I mean, and just, it's just, I don't know. I'm so deeply dissatisfied. It's so boring. It's so boring, and I was expecting so much more than this, and I just continue to be disappointed with this series. I think Daniel Sampere's art, as much as I love it, it's wasted on a narrative that doesn't deserve his art. This thing needs to be elevated substantially. I don't think Tom King knows where he's going with this. I question whether or not he even had any idea that this is how it was going to end. I mean, again, an entire issue with her just walking up to the White House steps. This is the epitome of decompression, and not in a good way. And I will let you now correct me why I'm wrong.
Well, I'm not gonna tell you you're wrong if that's what you think, but I will say, as I often do, I do it with Flash, right? I go to Comic Book Roundup because I'm curious. I'm like, maybe I'm the outlier, right? And I think Flash sucks, and everybody else thinks it's great. And then I just see the rankings go down, 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 down. With Wonder Woman, that's not the case.
And her
steadily,
sales are good. Her sales are pretty decent too.
Yeah,
I'll grant that,
steadily held, 8.8, 8.8, 8.5, 7.8. So I mean, I'm not the outlier here. Now I will agree with you, and this just made my top 5, and the reason for that was, I fully admit that this issue is a lot of setup, but the thing about it is it's set up in a cool way, right? It's set up that has gorgeous art, as you mentioned, and some really fantastic moments. You have it there on the screen if you're watching this on YouTube, everybody, where Grail comes out and she's got to prove herself against Wonder Woman, and they both were knocked unconscious last time they fought, and this time Grail's going to prove that she's the best and she's going to defeat Wonder Woman and what have you. And Wonder Woman just sicks Cheetah on her and walks away because Wonder Woman has nothing to prove. There's constant moments like that, and there have been throughout this series where I would argue that Tom King has a very good idea of who Wonder Woman is, and I promise you he 100% knew this moment and this issue when he started planning it out, leading to the final confrontation for the Sovereign against Wonder Woman. Now I agree, and that's why it's a little bit lower ranking for me, that it does feel like it's taken a little bit to get there, but I think for the average reader who doesn't read the number of comics we read, they probably don't necessarily mind that. That's probably okay with them, I would guess.
Well, clearly sales. I mean, like I said, I have no problem being an outlier. It's a position I'm well suited to in various aspects of comics. So,
so yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed seeing this Glory. What is he? General Captain, whatever he is, Captain Glory. Yeah. And you're right. Like the idea of the Sovereign, and his family and the manipulation and whatever that was revealed, but it wasn't like the Sovereign himself. And you can just look to sort of the news of the day, right? You can report anything in the news nowadays, and half the people are not going to believe it anyway. And even if they do believe it, they don't care. People get away with all kinds of stuff that in a different era would not be allowed. So, to see the Sovereign here sitting behind the desk of the White House, it's nowhere near as far-fetched as it once would have been, unfortunately. So I didn't necessarily have a problem with it, but I do acknowledge that this can feel decompressed. And even I was feeling like I'm ready to get there. I'm ready to see the final confrontation and what have you, which is going to happen in issue 19. But I mean, isn't that the point? Isn't that the point to
Yeah,
build
but
up
but but really
anticipation?
though, what's the confrontation going to be? Like a sovereign's not powerful. He's not. He's just an old man. Like what are they going to do? Have a tea? What are they going
I
to?
don't know.
They're not going
I
to
don't.
fight. They're not going to
I
do any. Like I mean, there
well
literally is nothing. I've got no reason to
again.
be excited for it.
What's the point? Go back to what I was saying before about I can sum up Amazing Spider-Man in one sentence, right? We knew before the series started that the Sovereign was going to lose. We saw that in the special, in the Trinity special, when he was,
That doesn't
in that
support your
cave on
argument,
the
though.
island. He was, he's like, yeah, this is the story of how your mother defeated me. Like, so we already knew that. The point is the point is the journey, and in a way, I suppose if we look at it from that perspective, if the point is the journey, then this issue, in a way, sort of is the perfect epitome, the perfect summary of the series so far. The point has been the journey, and here she is journeying to confront the Sovereign for the last time. Yeah, is it going to be some knockdown, drag out fight where all of a sudden we find out that the Sovereign has like incredible physical super abilities? No, that's not going to be what it is. We know it's not going to be that. So I'm enjoying this for what it is. And yeah, I mean, I get it. It might not be for everybody. That's okay. But I'm definitely enjoying it. So, but that being said, it only is number 5 for me. It made my top 5, but just barely. All right. Next book did not make my top 5. But I will admit this was probably, my favorite issue of World's Finest in quite some time, certainly since Adrian Gutierrez took over as the artist. So written by Mark Waid, Tamara Bonvillain on colors, Steve Wands on letters. It's issue number 36. The art in this particular issue, for whatever reason, is starting to work for me. Maybe I'm just getting used to Adrian Gutierrez's style on the book. But seeing, Lori Lemaris and Superman and the Floronic Man, machinations underwater, it's all just working for me. So I did enjoy it. It's not in your top 5, Rocky, but I don't know if you have anything to add quickly.
Yeah, well, I like. It's worth noting, Lori Lemaris. This is an adventure that takes place in the early years. I'm guessing around maybe year 1 or year 2 of the post appearance of Superman, because this is Lori Lemaris and Superman. This is Superman. Clearly, this is before he's married to Lois Lane, before he's even dating Lois, I think. And because him and Lori Lemaris has some feelings for Superman. Things aren't going particularly well with her and her husband, and there's some romance happening here. There's a great scene where Superman is asking Lori Lemaris if she's being truthful with him, and she says that she is. He asks her, "Is this the real reason you came back for me?" She says, "I need you," and he says, "That's the reason you came back for me," and she says, that's the reason. And it shows Superman listening to her heartbeat, and there's a blip. And so he knows that she has some feelings for him, and that she wasn't being entirely truthful. And so I thought that was very well done by Mark Waid. And of course, you got the Floronic Man sort of like bonding with the plant life underwater, which gives him a renewed sense of power. And then, of course, Swamp Thing having to show up, Alec Holland. And just really good stuff, along with the political machinations of Atlantis and how Superman's sort of stepping on King Aquaman's toes, and Mera telling Superman, "Hey, get out of here! You're making the king look bad. This is for Aquaman to handle." I like the character work there. It's very well done, and it was an enjoyable read, well scripted, just very well done. And it just goes to show that when we get these earlier adventures done right, they make for really great stories. So once again, thank you to Mark Waid. And you're right about the art, Adrian Gutierrez's art. I've enjoyed it more than you have, since he was on the started the illustrations. But yeah, overall, this is pretty damn good. And I really love cover A. I really love that cover with the Floronic Man with Swamp Thing in the background there. I like the cover work.
It almost looks like one of the old school Marvel letterbox covers because it just has that red bar across the top.
Looks really good.
Interesting. All right, up next, this is definitely in my top 5. Doesn't make your top 5, surprisingly. But there's no credits page for some reason. I don't know why. But we know it's written by Dan Waters. We know the art is by Dexter Stoy. We know the colors are by Veronica Gandini. Apologize to the letterer, whoever you are. You did a great job, but I can't give you proper credit because in the preview copy we have, I think it's just missing the credits. I think I know which splash page the credits are supposed to show up on, but for some reason it just doesn't show up. So anyway, I was over the moon with Dexter Soy's art on this issue. I think he does a fantastic job. There are times where his art can feel a little unfinished. I don't think that's necessarily the case with his, or hasn't been his case on throughout the run on Nightwing, but in this issue in particular, it really felt like his art was really polished. So I did really enjoy that. I also enjoy what Dan Waters is doing. You know, he's self-professed, tells weird and strange stories. We talked about it when he came on Nightwing, how Nightwing is such a traditional superhero book, and how was that going to work with Dan's sensibilities to tell like weird stories. And we talked about how he's done really a fantastic job of sort of keeping it grounded and keeping it real superheroic. Maybe more so than any other issue. In this one is where he starts to lean a little bit toward the weird or the supernatural, if you will, with these flyboys, this gang who we get kind of the origin of them in the power vacuum that happened after a Blockbuster was killed. They were looking to really take over kind of the illegal drug type business, and it was a Dr. Proboscis who came up with this drug, and instead of trying to make it more potent and more addictive, what he did was he manipulated the drug so that it would mutate the people that used it. It would affect their pleasure center of their brain more than it would otherwise, so that they would become more addicted. It would feel so good that they would just have to have it. But as a side effect, because he used fruit fly DNA to do these adjustments, they started mutating into flies, and so there's other things that happen throughout the course of the issue that kind of accelerates that mutation with these flyboys, and it ends up in a situation where Nightwing is fighting against them, but it's also a situation just like with the Teddy Bear Gang, where Nightwing is sort of their champion, if you will, sort of protecting them from spheric solutions and what's going on there with the manipulations, especially with his sister kind of in bed with them, and we see the political aspects of that rear their ugly head in this issue as well. So just a fantastic job of Dan Waters. Like we said in the beginning when he took over on this run from Tom Taylor, how he didn't throw out anything that came before. He's keeping it, the Pennyworth Foundation and Dick's sister as the mayor, and the power vacuum that was created by Blockbuster's demise and what have you. And he's just continuing to build on that. He's continuing to build on that in new ways, leaning into the action, leaning into the ramped up stakes. I mean, Bloodhaven is a powder keg in a lot of ways right now, with these different gangs that are vying for power and now vying for survival because of what Spheric Solutions has done in kind of equipping the Bloodhaven PD with these military style weapons and whatever. And it's built. He's done such a great job of like building the suspense and building the stakes, building the consequences. And I think we're far enough into this run now. I'm able to kind of make this judgment, I guess is the word I'll use, or make this assessment, maybe is a better. I like Dan Waters' run on Nightwing more than I like the Tom Taylor run. And I thought the Tom Taylor run was pretty good. It did kind of bog down for a little bit in kind of the middle of it. But man, Dan Waters, like there were times where we would read Tom Taylor issues of Nightwings, and we'd have the feels, right? You always had those emotional moments or whatever. But sometimes we were left a little bit searching for the action or searching for the pacing, waiting for something to happen. That has not been the case with Dan Water. Like, it is just one action-packed issue after another. Perfect artist. Dexter Soy's art has just been fantastic. I got to think, I mean, Nightwing has a very, very strong fan base, maybe rivaled only by Wally West. I haven't really been following along to see what that fan base has been thinking, but I gotta think that they're really enjoying it. Let me go to Comic Book Roundup while I'm talking here and check it out. And while I do that, Rocky, give us your thoughts. You agree with what I'm saying? I was surprised you didn't have this in your top 5.
Actually, it was in at number 6 or 7. Like, I have a tentative thing here. No, I really enjoyed this. And one of the things that I really love what Dan Waters did, he referenced what happened to Bloodhaven during the chemo attack. I remember back in the day, chemo exploded, destroyed all of Bloodhaven. Deathstroke dropped chemo on Bloodhaven, destroyed half of Bloodhaven. And I remember being pissed off because it was Green Arrow. I wanted Nightwing to get revenge on Nightwing, but it ended up being Green Arrow. But in any event, there's a consequence of that, and one of the consequences is that the Flyboys that are being manipulated along with the Teddy's gang to fight each other to create a gang war that Spheric Solutions is using to justify selling its weapons to the mayor, Grayson Lynn, and putting further pressure on Grayson Lynn by also financing her opponent, this Pisoni character, for the mayoral election coming up. The fact that the Flyboys, when they're done using a lot of the people who are addicted to this drug that was merged with the fruit fly DNA, what they're doing with them is that they're putting in a bunker, and it was the same bunker where a lot of the dead bodies of these victims of the chemo explosion were. And that causes further mutation, and they expected them all to die in the bunker, and it's very tragic. And with Dick Grayson at the end, they're talking to this Crystal's character who just wants to be saved. She doesn't want to die. He realizes that there's so much more at stake. So Dick Grayson, Nightwing, not only is Nightwing trying to protect the innocent members, well, innocent is a relative term here. He's trying to protect the gangs from fighting each other and protect them also from the manipulation and trying making sure they don't get guns. He also wants to, now he's got to protect the victims of this drug itself, from Dr. Proboscis. And it's just really well done. And I got to say, Dexter, sorry you mentioned him, every page, he seems to have a different perspective that he draws his art from. He's very talented. It's very obvious that his panel composition and the perspectives that he takes from panel to panel, it really creates a flow, an active flow where something is going. He's got a very interesting perspective in terms of how, like, just the angles that he chooses to draw the characters at. It feels very active. It feels very like there's a lot of movement, great pacing, and I agree with you about Tom Taylor's run. Tom Taylor's run felt so slow going. It had good character moments, but it was snail pacing in terms of the plot that you could probably sum her off in 2 paragraphs instead of 1. And in any event, I really like this. It was pretty good.
All right, up next, not in either of our top 10 either. I kind of have the same complaint that I always have about it, unfortunately. But anyway, it's Milestone Universe, The Shadow Cabinet, issue number 4. Written by Joseph Illidge. We have Daryl Banks, Ataguin Ilhan, and Ray Anthony Height on art, Christopher Sotomayor on colors, and world design on letters. Really enjoyed this. Had a ton of action. It's also like 30 pages, 28 pages, something, so it's pretty long. And I'm definitely enjoying it. I'm definitely enjoying it. I like what's going on with the Milestone universe. And I love that it's very telling that this is called Milestone Universe, The Shadow Cabinet. Throughout the series, the Shadow Cabinet have been there, but they certainly, I mean, you almost question why would it be called the Shadow Cabinet, because they're minor characters, especially beyond the first issue. But they are there, and we do want them to be introduced or what have you. And all these Milestone series have really started featuring all the characters because I don't know if maybe the sales weren't good enough when everybody was getting their own in the beginning. I mean, we had several. But again, it's the same thing that I always say about the Milestone universe. Like, it's such a rich universe. There needs to be like either more books or they need to be longer. It needs to be fleshed out more, because as much as I'm enjoying the events and the characters are interesting, it does feel choppy at times that we're not getting the whole story because they're trying to cram so much in to one book. And I get it, like sales and what have you, and I don't know what their deal is like with DC. I almost wish they would go to like a weekly release and just call it Milestone. Just have a comic called Milestone and do a weekly release and release it digitally. Like like DC does with like the Batman family book or whatever it is, or Vixen, or that they release on Webtoon, where it's 20 panels or whatever, a vertical scroll or whatever, and you can switch between different characters and different events or whatever, and just have it come out like less content but on a smaller or less content when it drops, but more content overall because it's coming out more frequently. So, less pages, less panels, but have it come out more frequently, and just call it Milestone and just have it, build, kind of like a comic strip back in the day, like Dick Tracy, you know what I mean? I don't know if that would work, but I'm interested in the Milestone universe, but I just feel like it doesn't get enough space, and it doesn't come out frequently enough to really gain any momentum. That's the problem that it has. So
it reminds me of one of the things that I'm collecting the physical copies of is I've collected the Valiant universe and the resurgence of the Valiant universe, and I've been collecting it over the last year and a half. And it's been slow going, and I don't think many people are picking it up. But the issues, I feel that way about the Milestone universe. The Valiant universe is another one where it's got these sort of, lesser known characters, but we used to be more popular. It's got a lot in common with the Milestone universe characters, in my opinion, but they're good, and so I'm always getting them, and they come out on a sporadic basis. So I pick them up, and there's a story there, and I feel, and they're even getting involved in some Kickstarters. And to be honest with you, I wish Milestone needs to have, like, they should advertise an event, like maybe have like 12 issues over the course of a year, and have an event for a resurgence of the Milestone universe or something like that. Because it's this, I don't know, this feels so rushed to me. And the story wasn't bad. Everything's wrapped up, but so quickly that it feels it. I can just see when I read this fourth issue, it's wrapped up so conveniently. There's so much more character work that could be done. And I know the only reason it isn't done is because they ran out of real estate. They ran out of space. And, again, I still enjoy the Milestone universe, but it still hasn't had its day yet. It deserves its day in the sun. I want to give a shout out on the last page. It's dedicated to the memory of Dwayne McDuffie, Robert Washington III, John Paul Leon, Matty Blostein, and M.D. Bright. Creators who all left us far too soon. So,
agreed. All right, next book in your top 10, not in my top 10, but it's Titans. We're up to issue number 20. Starts off with a bang, with maybe bang is the wrong word. They're kissing, Roy and Donna Troy, and there's an in-story explanation for that. And this is February's issue, so Crime of Passion, name of the story, by John Loverboy Layman and Pete Winsome Woods on art, Wes Abbott on letters. This was a fun issue, but it didn't quite make my top 10. I also thought that Pete Woods' art, it was a little looser than it usually is, but he made up for it with the last page. The splash page of Psycho Pirate on that final page is so good. But anyway, this is in your top 5, Rocky. So take it away.
Well, I really like it because it actually it's creating some drama. Finally, we get some drama, some just drama that's grounded in the history of these characters. That I just kind of like this aspect of it. And it's not that romance in comics doesn't always work, but it bloody well works when it has drama that goes along with it. And I can't think of a better angle to come at this. And thank you, writer John Layman, for doing this. I mean, what the hell? Roy Harper and Donna Troy are kissing, and the way they came about doing it, I mean, naturally, they ended up kissing at the end of an argument, and they're fighting, and they realize, oh my God, they actually have a little bit of passion for each other, but they're in denial, and they hate the fact that they kissed each other, and it kind of makes sense. Roy Harper still is in an undefined relationship with Cheshire, and Cheshire can go borderline psychopath at any moment, probably. I mean, she's a former, we think maybe she's a reformed villain. She was, they have a child together now, Leon, and she's with, they're caring for their daughter, and they're kind of, they're in an undefined relationship. And now if Cheshire finds out that Roy has kissed Donna Troy, that's going to create some tension there already. And we have, and this is such a perfect Valentine's Day issue. as a longtime Titans fan, I'm loving this. Raven is still trying to get control of her emotions, and they end up going to. They're at the park or whatever, and Raven, Raven is just, is about to tell. She's in the middle of telling Changeling, Beast Boy, that she loves him, and then she gets hit in the head with a basketball. She gets very emotional, and her emotional outburst causes Garth to become angry as well, and that creates a scene, and the Titans show up and what have you, and ultimately it all ends up that it resolves itself, but still the mystery as to they have to get Raven to get her emotions under control, so they end up going to Bumblebee, and Bumblebee or Karen, she shows up, and she basically creates a way as sort of gives Raven an emotional massage. You'll have to read the comic to figure out what the hell that means, but just a way to sort of ease her into things, and then ultimately it's revealed that that Roy Harper was actually knocked out in the park, and that Psycho Pirate is still manipulating events. And we know that Deathstroke's behind the scenes, and now Psycho Pirate's behind the scenes. So things are really ramping up here. And I'm starting to get some vibes here of how I felt back in the 80s a little bit. And I really, really like that. And I like the fact that, we're getting, all kinds of drama is going to occur, and what a fantastic way to start the issue off. That should have been on the cover, by the way, but I mean that cover with Roy, that opening page with Roy and Donna, fantastic. What a way to capture my interest, and I love the cover A. I love word balloons on covers. I know I'm an outlier in that too. Apparently, I wish there was more of it. I'm so bold as to think I think it would sell more comic books, but then I'm really an outlier for saying that. But I love the cover.
Yeah, what's funny is there's a school of thought that that putting apes or monkeys on covers really sells comics too. I don't know where that came. Like, there's so many people that are like, oh yeah, man, monkeys and apes on comic. I mean, they even had that jail ape event back in the day. Like, I don't know where that came from, because I could care less about having monkeys or apes in my comics, and I must be like the exception, because I've heard that so many times from so many people. But
yeah.
Anyway, last book we're going to talk about in detail, not on either of our top 5. It's Catwoman number 73. What I will say about it is it feels like a slow burn. Well, first of all, let me say, written by Torunn Grumbeck, Mariana Ignazi on art, Patricio Del Pesce on color, Steve Wands on letters. I was really excited when I heard this was going to be a story of Catwoman getting back to her roots as sort of this, spy or international villain of villainess of intrigue or what have you. But this has been a bit of a slow burn. And I really think that this is going to be one of those situations where it's going to read a lot better in a trade than it reads just as, like standalone monthly issues. It hasn't been working as well for me that way. I don't know. Maybe I'm an outlier. But I am sort of trying to pick up on what Torunn Grumbeck is doing. And again, like, part of it is that there's so many characters, and a lot of them are just civilians. So, and the art is not so detailed that it's easy to tell them apart. So with such a vast cast of characters and not being familiar with any of these characters, it's a little hard to follow at times. I think so. That's why I say that I think it'll read better in a trade. So I don't know. Anything to add, Rocky?
Well, it's interesting because I just double checked. Torunn Grumbeck writes Red Sonja, and it just so happens, this is coincidental. I collect Red Sonja, but I don't read Red Sonja. I always read them often when I read 4 or 5 issues at a time, and I actually enjoy the writing on his forgive me, is Torunn a guy or is it a girl?
It's a her. Yeah,
It's
it's a
her.
girl. Yeah, her.
I enjoy her writing of Red Sonja. And it does read very well because I get to read all issues at once, because I generally let them accumulate because I got so many comics to read every week. And I agree with you. This will read better as a trade, but I enjoy this. I still say this has just like a Jamie Bond feel to it, and I really. if I got one mild little nitpick, I think that the situation that Selena Kyle is in by having a past life as this Evie, and now somebody's trying to kill Selena Kyle and is aware of her past as Evie in and her adventures and this Evie's in adventures in Berlin. Evie apparently died in the past, and Selena basically either killed off her identity was killed off, and then Selena fled to the left ultimately and came to Gotham, where she's continued to be, began a Catwoman career or something. This happened sometime in the past. I wish there was a little bit more clarity as to exactly when that was. But I like that Grunbeck's, she's done a good job of establishing all these characters. And now this Evie's come out of the woodwork, and no one seems to know, except for this one Oriental character revealed here, that this Evie is actually Catwoman. And I like the fact that all these ones, Evie's alive, Evie's alive. That's this big revelation. And a lot of these mobsters are thinking that, especially the one that wants to, they're out to, somebody is aware that Evie is Selena Kyle and they're trying to kill Selena Kyle. We don't really know why. Somebody's finding her, spying on her, tracing her, and she's doing her best to escape detection. But ultimately, things are building to a head here, and I still really don't know what the hell's going. Still don't know who's looking for her, but her Grunbeck's done a good job of establishing these connections that she has with all these with this past she had in Berlin, and it actually I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. It will absolutely be better as a trade. I read the last issue and this issue together at one. I had just finished reading the last issue last week, so it was still on my mind, and I still have my notes from last time. So I'm enjoying it. I thought it was. I think it will absolutely read really well as a trade, but I'm also really enjoying it as well. I will say I'm still not a big fan of Selena Kyle's or Catwoman's new design. Her costume design. I'm still a sucker for the classic Darwin Cook look, but it's the artist, the art. Ignazi gives Selena her own kind of sexiness here. And by the way, there's also a Dan Panosian cover that is absolutely sexy. It's just incredibly sexy as hell here, which unfortunately, I get so frustrated. All the Panosian covers, most of them are not. Most of them are ratioed, and I don't spend more than cover price for a cover, so I'll never I'll never be able to own it, the cover, because I just Diamond doesn't even. I think I miss half the shipping anyway up here in Canada anyway. But it's too bad, But the cover A is pretty damn good too, though. I got to say, cover A is pretty damn good too. With the, I'm not sure who does the cover for cover A, but the main cover looks pretty damn good. So, yeah, this was probably 8 or 9 for me. My ranking, I liked it.
For me, this was number 12, so it was next to last. Again, there's potential here, but I think you got to read it, all in one. Sebastian Fumara did the main cover. Interesting that two of our favorite covers this week, both by Dan Panosian. He's such a fantastic artist. Neither one of them open order, unfortunately. Anyway, as far as collections this week, everybody, DC Finest Harley Quinn, Birth of the Mirth, which collects a ton of Harley Quinn books. It is 624 pages for $40. I'm not going to read off all the issues that it collects because it's all over. It's Action Comics and Batman Adventures and Batman Shadow of the Bat, Detective Comics. It just collects a ton of Harley Quinn material if you're interested. Also, Red Hood the Hill. Trade paperback collects the entire series from Sean Martinborough. That's 0 through 6, as well as the issues 51 and 52 of Red Hood and the Outlaws. So if you're so inclined, you can pick that up. Shazam Volume 2, Moving Day. This is the end of the Mark Waid run, so it collects issues 7 through 12 of that run with Emmanuel Lupacchina art. We've got Justice Society Volume 2, Long Live the JSA. That's the second half of the Jeff Johns run, which took forever to come out. So if you're so inclined, at least you can read it in a timely fashion.
Yeah.
We've got Batman Nightfall Omnibus. So this is going way back to the mid-90s, collecting the second half of the Nightfall story, which was huge at the time. 976 pages in this hardcover for $125. We also have Perez by Mark Russell and Ben Caldwell. This was Eisner, Ringo, and Glad award-winning story from or award-winning writer Russell, and it collected the series that came out, Prez 1 through 6, as well as a couple of other stories. And this was kind of a reimagining. I think it came out in the mid 2000s, if I'm
It
not.
was the DCU during the DCU
Yeah,
era.
DCU. Yeah, so it was like right around 2010 ish, 2011 maybe. Also, we have Brave and the Bold, Volume 2, Book of Destiny, collecting issues 7 through 12 of Brave and the Bold from Mark Waid. Wonder Woman, The Golden Age Omnibus, Volume 6. So this is going all the way back to the 1942 Wonder Woman series, collecting issues 48 through 71, and then Sensation Comics 105 and 106. An affordable way to pick up those issues that otherwise would cost you a pretty penny. And just in the interest of being complete here, I did go to Comic Book Roundup and checked out the scores for a Nightwing. Typically, the Tom Taylor issues, I'd say it averages right around an 8. There's some that go up to 9, some dip down in the 7s. For Dan Waters, his 4 issues that have been ranked so far, we got an 8.4, an 8.9, and 8.2. And I guess people didn't like the last issue. It only got a 7.5. I didn't remember the last issue being, it was the one that kind of gave the origin of the woman that's head of Spheric Solutions with the circus and what have you. But I guess people didn't care for it. But I have a feeling that that this issue, the rankings are going to go back up because this issue was so great this week. But anyway, on that note, book of the week, Rocky.
It was actually easy for me, to be honest. Even though I enjoyed it, and I have to say I enjoyed. Thank you. I enjoyed my discussion with it about all the comics with you. I enjoyed the week even more when talking about it. I don't always enjoy the week more after we're finished talking about it, because sometimes I'm reminded of what I didn't like. But this was a good week. It was a good week. But I still love the booty that Jamal Campbell puts on Zatanna, and I put a smile on my face reading that issue. Thank you, Jamal Campbell. Your writing was I think it was top notch. It was fun. It was easy to read. It was enjoyable as hell. This Lady White, his first appearance, I'm really curious about it. I love Zatanna. I love his artistic rendition of her, and I'm really looking forward to future issues on that. And so, yeah, I got to go with Zatanna. What about yourself?
Yes, that was number 3 for me. Number 2 being New Gods, and number 1 is Nightwing. I've just been blown away by what Dan Waters is doing. Like I mentioned, the Dexter Soy art just seems like it gets better and better each issue. So surprisingly enough, I mentioned when I went to rank everything this week that other than putting Creature Commandos, which just hasn't been working for me, down at the bottom, everything else it was sort of tough to figure out. I mean, everything was so close. So I think the gap between Nightwing at number 1 and Catwoman at number 12 is really small. And on any given day, these could get rearranged in any number of order. And Zatanna could move up to number 1, or maybe New Gods is number 1 or whatever. But as I rank them now, I went with Nightwing as number 1, and all the way down to the final issue of Jenny Sparks and Wonder Woman. Yeah, I think it was a really solid week.
Yeah, both Dan Panosian covers that we got up here too, as both of them.
Yeah. So, I will say, actually, I don't. Is that a Dan Panosian cover on that Zatanna?
Oh, I assumed it was. Maybe I stand corrected.
No, the Dan Panosian cover on that one is she's holding a top hat and pulling a rope out of it, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, that cover is Sozamaka, I think is how you say the name. I can never say the name.
My apologies to Sozamaka then.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's a gorgeous, that is probably the best or my favorite, I should say, of the open order covers. But yeah, there's a Derek Chu cover that's great. There's a Jamal Campbell Virgin variant as well. That's really great. So yeah, I mean, you almost can't go wrong with the different the different covers on Zatanna. But anyway, yeah, I thought it was a really great week of books overall. And yeah, there wasn't a lot. I mean, from 1 through 12, they were all really solid for me. So anyway, don't forget, if you're listening to the audio only, head over to Rocky's YouTube channel, Comic Space Boom, ! Like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell so you know when new content comes out. Don't forget, head over to the Comic Source YouTube channel for all our interviews that are coming out this week, as well as our Indie Spotlight. So we appreciate everybody joining as always, and we'll talk to you next time.
Catch you later.